Good morning. Thank you for being with us at this early hour. This is the EPP Group press conference. The current geopolitical situation with the United States disengaging in Europe and the latest proposals by the European Commission how to strengthen the European defence present unprecedented budgetary challenges for the European Union. With me, I have Siegfried Muresan, who is the EPP Group's Vice President and the rapporteur for the long-term budget of the European Union. He is the one who will be negotiating the European long-term budget. And with that, I give Siegfried the floor.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Marta. Good morning, everyone. Good morning to colleagues here in the room and also to those connected online. Thank you for being with us this morning. I just wanted to share some thoughts on how we manage to fund the defense properly at European level in the next years, how we manage to do that in the short term, but also how we should do it in a sustainable, transparent manner in the long term. Firstly, there is no silver bullet. Don't expect one solution that will provide enough funding to defense to reduce the investment gap in the area of defense now and forever. What we will need to work on is a mix of solutions, several solutions which all together will bring us to where we have to be in terms of improving the efficiency of spending, in terms of allocating more resources, public and private, at national and at European level. All this together combined only will work. Firstly, where are we now? The European Union has always adopts a multi-annual budget for 7-year periods. We have adopted the budget for 2021-2027 in 2020, before the illegal and illegitimate invasion of Russian armed forces in Ukraine. This multi-annual financial framework has very limited reserves, very limited space of maneuver, hardly any flexibility. It is a budget which, because of this lack of flexibility, has difficulties to coping with unexpected developments. This is why the first thing that we have to improve for the next multi-annual financial framework is flexibility. 7 years is a long period of time. Always unexpected developments occur in 7 years. During the previous MFF 2014-2020, we had the big migration and refugee crisis 2015-16. We had, unfortunately, Brexit. We had the beginning of COVID. During this multi-annual financial framework, we had the large-scale invasion of Russians into Ukraine, which meant that we need to support Ukraine and candidate countries, we need to reorganize our energy policy, and we need to invest more in defense. All things which were not foreseen. In the next 7 years, for sure we will have crises which we cannot anticipate right now. So the first thing that we will do is a more flexible budget that can react. Secondly, in this multi-annual financial framework now, for the first time, we allocated a heading on defense. For the first time, one of the 7 headings, one of the 7 chapters of the budget is on security defense. However, it is by far the smallest in the budget, 1.2 billion euros. 1.2% of the budget is allocated to security and defense, meaning 13.1 billion euros for 7 years were initially foreseen for security and defense. Insufficient. So insufficient plus lack of flexibility. So one thing that we had to do was create a so-called European peace facility outside of the budget, which was also used to supporting Ukraine since the beginning of the large-scale war. So not enough resources, not enough flexibility in the budget, which meant that an instrument outside of the budget had to be created. This endangers, in budgetary terms, the unity of the budget, and also does not provide for sufficient accountability, transparency, democratic control and legitimacy. Because for democratic control and legitimacy to exist, the European Parliament needs to be involved. And that is always the case in the EU budget. But if a tool is created outside of the EU budget, the involvement of the European Parliament is not by default given. And honestly, whatever we manage to negotiate as rights for the Parliament, as we also did in the case of Next Generation EU, of the Recovery and Resilience Facility, for a tool which is not as part of the budget, whatever we mention negotiators' rights is always less than what the Parliament has by default within the EU budget. This is why, for the future, this is my third point, we will advocate for a unity of the budget. Whatever we will do on defense, it should be part of the budget and clearly budgeted for the 7 years. Please expect that for the next 7 years, the budget of the European Union will be better aligned with the new priorities of the Union, security and defense on one side, and competitiveness. So what I'm trying to say is, for the future, defense will become an overarching priority of the budget. And so will competitiveness. So all programs that we will fund from the EU budget will have to contribute to improving competitiveness, be it an investment from cohesion, be it an investment from agriculture, where we can also, even in terms of agriculture, we can improve the competitiveness, the productivity, the competitiveness in the rural area, the productivity of our farmers. And as many as possible projects will have to contribute to the safety, security, and defense. This is why I believe that our main investment policy, the cohesion policy for the future, shall also allow for projects that have a dual use, a civil and military use, projects which are bringing benefits to citizens, to the economy in day-to-day life, but which can also support military mobility in times of crisis. The next multi-annual financial framework, we're starting work on it right now. The European Parliament will adopt its first position in May. Myself, together with our co-rapporteur from the S&D Group, we are now defining the position of the Parliament, which will be adopted in May before the Commission will put forward its draft proposal in July. But this only provides for solutions post-2028. And we will need financial support before that. This is why the European Commission has put forward 2 weeks ago an idea, a sum of ideas, a package for immediate investments in the area of defense. The EPP Group welcomes and welcomes this initiative, supports this approach. And let me say some things about this. The first and most important element is the proposal of the European Commission to borrow 150 billion euros on the financial markets and make it available for member states in the form of loans. With regards to this, our position as EPP Group is the following. Firstly, if we spend European money, we need to spend it on European projects, and the European added value needs to be obvious. This is why we expect that a significant amount of these 150 billion euros should go into cross-border projects which are tendered by several member states and which have a European added value, projects which no member state alone can do. That's my first point. My second point, particularly those member states who are investing significantly in defense have a plan of investments for the near future. And we need to make sure that this proposal of the European Commission is compatible with the individual investment plans of member states and can provide support there. What I'm trying to say is we want to see as many European projects funded from this 150 billion euros initiative, but if some member states have also some national projects planned, which are already in the pipeline, in the planning, in the making, we believe that funding from this 150 billion euros fund should be made available there as well. So joint procurement should not become a condition for every single penny that we're spending there. We need the European additionality, the European added value. I believe a significant amount should be funded on cross-border projects, but we should also help member states and some projects which are in the making, which would increase our defense capabilities. If individual member states do them, they should not be excluded there. Last point from my side, before we're happy to take your question, is the following. This package put forward by the Commission is based on 150 billion investments at European level, but also gives member states the possibility to spend more at national level, because, as I said, the European Union alone will not be able to stem this. This package proposes to make use of the existing flexibility in the Stability Growth Pact. And the philosophy of the Stability and Growth Pact is, of course, the following. We need to save in good times so that in a situation of crisis we can react and we can support the economy, citizens, in a situation of crisis. We are now in such a situation. This is why activating the so-called national escape clauses in the Stability and Growth Pact is justified because we are in a situation of crisis. But the fact that we allow member states to spend more on security and defense should not be misunderstood as a permission and as a welcoming for member states to spend more on everything. The Stability and Growth Pact works only if we are fiscally responsible in good times in all areas, so that in times of crisis we can speed up and we can ramp up expenditure. So the fact that we now need to spend more on defense and the European Commission proposes to flexibilize the rules and make use of the flexibility for such investments shouldn't be misunderstood by member states as an invitation to overspend now on everything. That would be a fatal mistake. If deficits will increase in an unjustified manner, that will limit our space of maneuver to act in future crises. That would be contrary to the letter and the spirit of the Stability and Growth Pact. This is the very clear and firm conviction and position of our EPP Group. Thank you very much. We're happy to take your questions.
Yes, just one remark from my side. This meeting takes place online as well. We've got 28 journalists connected. Please ask your questions in English because we don't have the interpretation, and tell your name and the outlet you work for when you take the floor. Let's start there.
Yes. Karl de Meyer for the French Daily Les Echos. A draft version of the white paper on defense has been circulated in Brussels over the last days. Have you read it? And are you disappointed that it doesn't mention more innovative funding solutions? And the Parliament has voted last week in Strasbourg a resolution calling for Eurobonds, especially for defense. Are you personally in favor of these Eurobonds? And are you disappointed that in the version of the white paper that we have seen so far, they do not appear?
So firstly, I would not comment on leaked documents before the Commission publishes its official version of the white paper. That is going to be tomorrow, so I will be patient. I expect the white paper of the Commission to tell us very clearly which are the European projects in the area of defense which we should do, which are those projects which member states alone individually cannot do, which would only be done if we step in at European level. So I expect a clear definition I expect a clear listing of such projects, and also the European Commission telling us how much resources is needed for such projects so that we can make our financial planning. With regards to Eurobonds, look, at the beginning of the COVID pandemic, we have launched Next Generation EU, the Recovery and Resilience Facility, the biggest package of economic support ever created at European level, to help regions, citizens, enterprises affected by the pandemic and to improve our resilience to make sure that never again in the future we're hit in such a way by a crisis. The Recovery Resilience Facility, Next Generation EU, is about half loans, half grants. The repayment is not yet clarified. Commission, Council and Parliament have committed to introducing own resources. Parliament respects its commitment. Council and Commission are dragging its feet on the introduction of own resources. As long as the repayment of Next Generation EU is not clarified, our space of maneuver for additional borrowing at European level is very, very limited. This is why I believe that what the European Commission is proposing now, 150 billion euros of borrowing, but for loans, not for grants, is justified. It is not endangering the financial and fiscal stability of the Union and of the EU budget, but we cannot do more. And for sure, as long as the repayment of Next Generation EU is not clarified, the European Commission cannot borrow more to make it available to member states as grants, because that means that, the repayment is not clarified. For the 150 billion euros now, the Commission borrows it on the markets, makes it available to member states as loans. The repayment is not a problem because the member states will pay it back. It's a loan. So this is why this is justified. It is in order. It won't jeopardize our fiscal stability, and our group supports it. But more is unfortunately not possible right now, particularly given that we still have to clarify the repayment from Next Generation EU, which, as I said, has half grants component, which we need to find funding for.
And next question, Lukasz.
Łukasz Rzyński, Polish Press Agency. We are talking mostly about the European funds for the security and defense, which, as you mentioned, are quite limited. How to convince such a member states like Belgium, Portugal, and Spain to spend more on defense from the national budget? Thank you.
So firstly, I believe that member states who are not spending enough and who are also not yet respecting the commitments made within NATO on defense, they have to spend more. But I believe that member states who are allocating enough resources on defense, like Poland, like Greece, my home country, Romania, is also significantly above 2% of GDP, have to be supported and incentivized as well. So I believe that what matters now is to increase the spending at European level. We have to support also those countries who are spending more than the initial requirement, particularly if they are closer to the aggressor in the east. What I would like to say is the following. Also from the 150 billion euros, the danger, the risk for Europe, the threat is primarily coming from Russia in the east. This is the most imminent challenge to us rather than challenges from other parts of the globe. This is why I believe that countries bordering Russia, protecting our eastern border, have to be supported specifically. Their investments in defense at national level have to be incentivized, and if they have good projects, of course, they need to be allocated a significant share from the 150 billion euros. I believe that we still have to explain to all member states and to the public opinion the variety of threats that Russia is posing. I was at the border between Poland and Belarus some weeks ago, and we could see there how Belarus, together with Poland, let me repeat. We could see there how Belarus, together with Russia, is instrumentalizing illegal migrants from Africa, transporting them illegally from Eastern African countries via Moscow and Minsk to the Polish border, and with the support of the Belarusian authorities, illegal migrants are encouraged to cross the border illegally into Poland and herewith into the European Union and the Schengen area, posing a security risk for the whole of Europe. Poland is doing an excellent job to protecting our external border. Physical infrastructure there is, and that's a reality, also needed. And when you're at the border and when you're seeing on the other side of the border a dictatorial regime led by President Lukashenko, you understand that that's the only way to protect the border. What I'm trying to say is the threat that and the pressure that Russia and Belarus are posing, particularly on our eastern European member states, is diverse, and they have to be supported so that they can protect the whole of Europe at the end of the day. And as I said, instrumentalization of migrants is just one tool that they have.
Next question. You in the black sweater there.
Hi there, Matthew Farou, editor for French newspaper La Lettre. In Strasbourg, Ursula von der Leyen made clear that this package should be allocated in priority to the European defense industry. Where does EPP stand when it comes to that? And do you believe, for instance, that the European fund should be allocated to build American defense system Patriot, sure, built in Germany, but really it's clearly an American actor there?
Look, we particularly as a centre-right group here in the Parliament, the EPP Group, we believe that the defence industry can also be a source of growth, a source of job creation, particularly in the next years as production will have to increase. We are seeing also member states of the Union which are allocating resources for defence at the beginning of the year, but then at the end of the year we are seeing that the execution of the budget is not 100% because they want to purchase, but they do not find enough quantities on the market. So what I'm trying to say is we need to increase our production capabilities, firstly. Secondly, we need to admit that our American partners have been an essential supplier to us and in some areas also technologically vital for us. We will never turn our backs on our American friends, but of course we're now living in a world in which unfortunately this American administration has different priorities. We have to cope with this, and this is also one of the reasons, but also the second reason is the fact that we will need to purchase more. These are the reasons why we're interested in growing our production capabilities here in Europe on the basis of European technology. Closing some technological gaps will take some time. So this is why we as an EPP Group advocate for a very realistic and balanced solution, not an ideological one. And our solution says improve capabilities as soon as possible, as much as possible, on the basis of European technology, but we are aware that, at least in some areas, the technology from our American partners is essential and vital, and we are not going to endanger the security of Europe by turning our backs on some technologies which have been and still are important to us. I believe that the share of European equipment will increase for all member states of the Union in the medium to long term, but it is clear that we are not interested in a disruptive activity in the short term. We're going to purchase whatever there is available and whatever helps our member states improve their capabilities in the short term, and that matters more than ideology.
We can go a few minutes over time, so I can collect a few questions if there are any left, and then you can take them together.
And I think there's two colleagues online as well.
Yes. So Max and you.
Yeah, thank you. Rick Rutten at Dutch Daily NRC. Thank you. You rightly said that in the current budget, there's limited space for programs, and so Rearm Europe is pretty much what is available now. But could you shed some light for us on what you would like to see in the upcoming budget, and especially in terms of programs like Rearm Europe and perhaps a more increased, larger, more encompassing form of joint borrowing, which is something that countries like Spain have already called for?
Yeah.
Let's take one more question.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi, Max Guerrera for Politico. Bit of a off-topic question, but still MFF. So there's this draft circulating about the possible new allocation of funds, in its different pockets, right? And there's this new pocket called Global Europe Fund, in which funds are allocated per geographical region, including one called Europe Plus, which would include Reform and Growth Facility for the Western Balkans and for Moldova, as well as the instrument for pre-accession assistance. Do you agree with the creation of such fund? Thank you.
Firstly, thanks for both questions, very important. Firstly, on the next budget, we believe that all of the programs in the next budget have to be evaluated on whether they make a contribution to improving the competitiveness and the security of the European Union. And we believe that in the area of research, innovation, but also in the area of investment and infrastructure, projects can make a contribution to improving the security and defense of Europe. So what we would advocate for as EPP Group is synergies between our main investment policies, between the cohesion policy, between the funds for research, innovation, and security defense. Of course, defense remains a national prerogative, but where Europe can help is making sure that we research, we innovate, we get to build efficiently modern technologies equipment in Europe. So we should spend once on research and we should spend once on research innovation at European level, get to the best product, and then order it in large scale, make it available to member states in the quantities which they need, improving here with also the interoperabilities of the national armed forces. So what I'm trying to say is spending once at European level, particularly in the area of research, innovation on defense, is more efficient than spending several times at national level to research the same project and to invent similar equipments which would be different, which would be similar but different, here with also not reaching the maximum interoperability of our national armed forces. Particularly also synergies between infrastructure projects and defense will be important. On joint borrowing, as I said, our space of maneuver is very limited, and the approach of the Parliament for the next multi-annual financial framework will be one based on unity. We should finance defense as much as possible inside the budget, with the democratic control of the Parliament, with the programs existing. That should be our starting point. On the so-called leak that existed last week, as I said, look, no comments from my side on leaks. We're disappointed as a Parliament to see the European Commission working on the MFF in an untransparent way towards the European Parliament. We had an excellent discussion with the Budgets Commissioner last week in the Conference of Committee Chairs in the presence of the two Parliament's co-rapporteurs on the multi-annual financial framework. We were asking him about the next steps, and the answer was there is not much in the making in the European Commission, just for us to see that very afternoon the leak that you're talking about. We trust the Budgets Commissioner. He is our main contact point in the Commission on budgets, but if some services leak unapproved and unauthorized documents that the Commission is reflecting upon, and we're being told institutionally and officially that there is not much to tell, that is, of course, making a trustful collaboration very, very difficult. This is why what we expect as a European Parliament is the European Commission informing in good faith the Parliament about its reflections. And we feel that hasn't happened so far. There was a leak in October, which was downplayed in terms of importance by the European Commission, and now we are seeing the same philosophy applied. This is why, Max, I will not comment individually on what you mentioned with regards to the Global Europe Fund there. But I can say that supporting our immediate neighborhood, our candidate countries, will be essential for the security and stability of the European Union in the next years. We can only live in safety and stability inside the borders of the Union if our immediate neighboring countries, most of them being EU candidate countries as well, are safe and stable. This is why the support to Ukraine, Moldova, Western Balkan countries is essential. There it should go hand in hand with reforms, because what we want those countries is to evolve, modernize, reform, tackle corruption, tackle money laundering, so that they get closer to European standards and one day are also ready for EU membership. So funding to those countries is important, especially after the US is disengaging, including because of the dismantling of USAID. Civil society and free press in candidate countries need to be supported. With the US disengaging, we should not leave the vacuum there to autocracies from around the world, be it Russia or China. The EU needs to step up. So that area of funding, without yet commenting on the specific programs, should be a priority for our budget in the next years.
Let's take one very short last question and a short answer then.
Yeah.
Also, Martina, please connect. Are you still there? Perhaps then we go to the next in line, Indio Momchil.
Yes, Domnule Mureșan, just one question about the MFF and the money allocated for defense. Can you mention any concrete amount of the next MFF and of the money which you think you or the EPP respectively think must be allocated for defense in the next MFF? Thank you.
No amounts, neither on defence nor on any other projects right now. The sequence will be the following. The European Parliament will adopt its own initiative report in May, in which we're going to outline our philosophy for the next budget based on flexibility, simplification, better alignment of the programs with the EU priorities. We're going to talk about the philosophy and about our priorities, and then only afterwards, when the European Commission will put forward its proposal in July, will we be discussing concrete figures. We also, as Parliament's co-rapporteurs, have constantly rejected over the past months individual discussions about individual figures for each of the programs. What we need is a common approach. It's very easy now to say we need to double the funding for farming, we need to double the funding on defense, and so on, but then, there is no realistic and unitary position in the end. Firstly, the priorities, and then the amounts as of July. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone. Happy to also in the next days and weeks. Thank you very much for joining.